up, AD? Straight down there?
Popping off too. Popping top. See your ribs.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are here with the first injury report of the week for the Lions and Rams game. One of the most anticipated games when the schedule first dropped for the Lions. I mean, we were looking, where is that Rams game? When you knew we were playing this division, that was a hyped game coming into the season. And I still think it's been talked about really throughout the entire year, especially going back to the beginning of the season. But now we're here. It's officially Rams week. It's Wednesday. By the way, if you guys were in the stream last night, I appreciate it. I'm sorry it just ended randomly. So my power went out. Went out, and it was weird because it was only my street that the power. I'm looking outside and I'm like, okay, they got power, we don't. So the power just went out. So that's why that happened. All right. So I apologize. It just is what it is, I guess. Okay. We just gotta make it work. The good thing is we were pretty far into it anyway. So that's the good thing. But we have the injury report today. We got some news to talk about. We got a lot of things to discuss. So let's get it started.
Way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, and we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome, everybody, to the video. Glad you guys are here, and I'm excited to be back for another injury report video. Man, these always feel good. It's always good to be like, yes, we're on to Wednesday, especially when you're coming off a loss. I mean, we've come off a loss 6 times in a row now, but it's just nice to be like, okay, we on to the next, especially this week. I'm pumped for this one. And I know the spread is just ridiculous. It's a 15-point spread this week. You know, last week we played Cincy, and they saw us play a couple of close games in the Vikings game. All right, let's make it 3.5. They're going to keep it close. And then we lost by like 23 points. So like, okay, we messed up. Let's make it 15. Yeah, on paper, this is a tough matchup. And it's unfortunate that we have to play a team like this after coming off the loss that we came off of. Because even if we played a great bounce-back game, our best game of the season, it would still be tough to win this game on the road because the Rams are just that good. But the emotion's going to be there. You know, the players say, you know, once the whistle, blows it, it's not... I just feel like it's there. Returning to LA to play against Sean McVay. You know, McVay knows what he's good, what he's not good at. And then you'll have on the other side, of course, I mean, this one's a little bit different because this regime really didn't have Stafford. But all of us fans, we were with Stafford for a very long time. So I think the emotions are going to be there. It's going to be exciting. But at the same time, man, you want to beat this team. Like, there's no question. You just want to, maybe even more, you want to beat this team. Before we get this started, I do not have the Rams injury report yet. I don't know when I'll get it. They have the different time zones. So their 4 p.m. is usually when, you know, your injury report drops. It could be, it's like 7 o'clock, I think, our time, you know, Eastern time. So I'm not sure when it's going to drop. I've seen them from a few last week that dropped at like 8 o'clock. So I have no idea. I don't know when this video is dropping, but I do have a couple of notes from their side. And when we get it, I'll throw it in here later and then I'll upload it. So if this video drops real late, I mean, I guess that is what it is, and we'll just adjust for the next couple of days. But I don't know how it's going to drop. Once I know how it drops, the next 2 days will be easier to plan, but I don't know when it's going to come out. So I'm going to do the Lions first, and when I get the Rams one, I'll share it with you guys, and maybe a shorter segment. But I still want to put it in there just so we can get a kind of feel on what the Rams are dealing with. But I do have some notes, so it probably won't need to be a very long segment anyway, just because, and maybe going forward, we won't even do it. We'll just say, okay, this was yesterday's injury report. This is what it looks like. I mean, we don't even have to really dive into it. We made that in today's video. I may just start of an idea. Anyways, let's take a look at this. We have some notes, so let's get into it. All right, let's start with the Lions' open roster spot. The Lions had an open roster spot from last week. There was potential that Taylor Decker took that spot coming off of IR, but it never happened. So in place of that spot, which was still open this week, the Detroit Lions have signed wide receiver Geronimo Allison to the active roster. So he has filled up the last spot on the active roster, the open spot. And this is a guy that promoted from the practice squad. He played last week for the Lions. I don't know if there's like a chemistry thing that they have to continue to build with him and Goff. Something just did not seem right there between the two in this game. But the Lions, who need some receiver help, of course, and we've heard the rumors about trading for a receiver. We talked about that yesterday, possibly trading for a receiver, and there's still names that are out there. But the Lions have decided to just sign Geronimo Allison to the active roster. I want to talk about those guys that are on injury reserve because we have 3 players that are set to come back whenever they're ready. I mean, honestly, at this point. So let's start off with the big one. It's Taylor Decker. All right, this is the guy that's getting the attention. I want Taylor back big time. I mean, if there's one guy that I really was just looking for all day today was Taylor Decker's status. Is he taken off of IR? Will he play this week? That's really what I was focused on. I'm gonna be honest, especially for Wednesday. That's all I was really focused on. Where is Taylor Decker at? And Dan Campbell talked about him pretty detailed today, and he said, the thing with Taylor Decker, he's pretty much there. Like, I mean, he's basically where he needs to be to play, according to Dan Campbell. But at this point, it's kind of the mental side of things, and the way I interpret it is kind of the trust level or the confidence that he has in himself to play with, some of the limitations that he now has wearing the cast. They don't want to put him out there where he's lacking confidence and things go wrong, and now they use that spot to have Decker and they're not prepared for something else. So they're kind of just waiting to see how it goes throughout the week. As of this very second, there have been no updates about him being taken off of injury reserve onto the active roster, and that spot is filled, so they'll have to open it back up. But this is 8th day into that process since returning to practice. So he has 13 more days to be added back to the active roster. If he cannot, then of course he's got to be down for the season. So that's the concerning part. But the good thing is Dan Campbell says he's pretty much ready. Described it as like the microphone. I'm assuming he's talking about his jacked up fingers. When they get hit, it kind of just moves like this. I'll let Dan Campbell explain it because I can't explain it that well.
Look, last week when we first started this thing, it looked like this microphone times 2. It was like, so, it just takes a minute to get used to. That's first of all. That alone takes a minute. Well, then when you do that, he kind of hits somebody, and now it's not like you just nick it. So when you nick it, the whole thing bends backwards, and now the knuckle gets pissed off. And so now, all right, man, let's do this a little different, and maybe we crop it down. And so a little bit of it's just getting comfortable with what that's going to feel like. And I think if anything, he's going to have to. It really gets to the point where, man, you're going to have to. Can you get comfortable with being a one-arm man? Because that's really what it becomes. You can use it to punch, but to be able to grab is going to be hard.
One of those things where I don't know if it's like, hey, Decker can get this much better in 2 weeks. It's just mentally, does he feel like he's able to go? So I don't know where it'll go from here. We just kind of have to wait and see. Update on Deshaun Hand. This is a good one. He has returned to practice. Yeah, it's been a while. Deshaun Hand's back in practice, and he's starting his 21-day period where he can be placed back to the active roster and taken off of IR. And again, if that doesn't happen within 20 days, once you return to practice, then you're going to be shut down for the season, okay? That's the rules that they go with. So he started that three-week process today, returning to practice. So that's exciting news for Deshaun Hand. That doesn't mean he's going to play this weekend, but it's exciting news to get him back into practice. And Kevin Strong's still in the same boat as Taylor Decker. This is his 8th day in, and we're kind of just waiting to see where Kevin Strong is at. But, I mean, dude, this D-line's been playing well. These young guys have once again stepped up. Aleem's making a crazy impact. Like McNeil, I mean, this guy looks like a different player from the very beginning of the season. Levi's been getting involved. There are some injuries, though, we're dealing with on the D-line once we get into it. So we'll just see how that progresses throughout the week. But those two guys, they're working their way back. So that's just an update on IR. We'll see how it goes. As soon as I hear that Decker comes back, I will let you know. I'm going to try to speak it into existence that this guy can come back, all right? Because he needs to. We need this piece. We just do. New addition to this list, Jason Cabinda, the Detroit Lions fullback, dealing with a hip injury, did not participate today. He was at practice, which is, of course, good news. So he was there, but he did not participate. He was not wearing pads. So we'll see how that progresses throughout the week. We know what the Lions are trying to do. They've been trying to get Jason Cabinda involved a little bit as a lead blocker. So we'll see how that goes. But this is a new name that we've now are seeing on this list. Continuing down, TJ Hawkinson, of course, the top tier tight end. This is the 3rd week in a row he has not practiced on Wednesday. And I wonder if that's causing some issues. I'm not completely sure. We know the first week that he missed on Wednesday and he came back the next 2 days and he was limited. Same thing happened last week. The first week this went down with TJ Hawkinson. Dan Campbell talked about that being an impact, that he's missed some practice throughout the week. And again, today, no participation. Now, the good thing is that TJ Hawkinson was there. He was at practice. He met with the media, and he said that he would be good to go on Sunday. So I'm not concerned about him playing. It's just about where he's at being ready for the week. We know he was super involved last week. You just got to wonder if there's anything that can be, thrown off on timing where guys are supposed to be by missing some of this early practice in the week. Now, speaking of practice, Dan Campbell said today that they put the pads back on for Wednesday. Last week, they did not wear pads, and Campbell brought it up in his presser that maybe we have to go back to pads on Wednesday. He said it's going to be a very similar intensity. The way they're going to handle practice, the amount of time they're going to be on the field is going to be pretty much the same. The difference is they're going to be wearing pads. And he said maybe it can help set the tone. He didn't feel like last week we didn't go out there and play with effort. He didn't feel like it was an effort issue. It was just really beating ourselves with some of the terrible mistakes that we're making, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Like, oh gosh, the penalty. I don't even want to get into it. We've seen it. We don't even want to go back into that terribleness. But I do think that possibly being in pads, it could keep you locked in and focused, because the Lions offensively didn't seem like they were locked in at all. By the way, did you guys know that when they do these post-practice or these practice media pressers, they're kind of like outside? Like there's like a little like side garage, and they're right next to the practice field. I didn't know where they were at. I was just, because you can't really see it, you know, from the angle they give us. I thought, oh, they were inside somewhere. No, like they're kind of outside. I know that doesn't really matter, but I just thought that was interesting. All right, back to the injury report. Nick Williams, defensive lineman with a knee injury, did not participate today in practice either. Now, this is a guy that did get injured last week against the Bengals, and he came back onto the field. Definitely serves an impact with his rotation on the defensive line, but the fact that he went down with an injury, yes, he did return, but you just wonder if it's gotten worse, you know, since returning. You know, wonder where he's at. Is this more of a rest day just to making sure that he's good? They didn't list it as a rest day, but Lions really haven't listed that many rest days. I don't know if they've listed any rest days this year. So he'll be a big one to watch as the week goes. Michael Brockers, unfortunately, has returned to this list. It's in limited fashion. It's not no participation, but it's back with the shoulder injury that he's had it since, you know, you go back to the offseason, he's had this injury. All right, Michael Brockers is back on this list. Last week he was taken off it, which was great, but this week he's back on it. So that does stink. But at least he's still practicing, still limited, and he played a lot of snaps for us last week. I'm not super worried about his availability at this point. It's just, you know, you kind of like to not see him on there. Trey Flowers, he continues to be on this list, but he started off the week well this time. He starts it off with limited participation. Okay, actually, I think that's an improvement. I think it's an improvement to see him start off the week by participating in practice early. I think that's nice. So I would actually say it's an improvement for Flowers that's been on this for a few weeks now, but he's played the last couple of weeks, and he's definitely helped us. Charles Harris, a guy that's really helped us, and I think he's really starting to show out. This is definitely on pace to be his best season, by far. And right now, he's dealing with a hip oblique injury that he dealt with in Sunday's game against the Bengals. And according to Dan Campbell, after that injury, he said that it was a day-to-day injury with him. So that's kind of where that's at right now. But he still did participate. Will Harris, this might be the first time I think we've seen Will Harris on this list this season. This will be another one to keep an eye on because our safeties have been pretty much healthy for the season. We do have Dean Marlowe, who's started to see his snap counts kind of go up. He's kind of just rotated through those three safeties. We do have the ability to have a guy like Bobby Price at safety, but they've moved in the corner, so I doubt that would happen. But they also have Jalen Elliott, who they've kind of protected every single week on the practice squad, the safety out of Notre Dame. So if something did happen there where he was limited or maybe he couldn't go for whatever reason, you do have Jalen Elliott, who I really like, that would probably be promoted from the practice squad to the active roster on game day. But he was still limited, so, you know, nothing to be super concerned about yet. I also heard from Matthew talk about his former team, and he was asked a lot of questions about this team. It was like they were trying to get some kind of headline out of him, like, oh yeah, it was just like, this is how bad it was, and they were asking about expectations and things like that. But, you know, as you expect, super respectful. I thought both quarterbacks were super respectful to both sides. But that's kind of what you expect. That's just kind of who those people are. But Stafford did talk about this secondary, and he's like, you know, they got a lot of turnover. They got a lot of new pieces I'm going to be facing. But when you look at some of those secondary players, when I went against them, they were young. And now you're starting to see the improvements. Now, I mean, some of these, you know, they were there last year. But there is improvement. He's like, I mean, we saw the potential with Amani, but now you see him making plays. And this guy's already got 3 picks in 6 games, which is kind of nuts, by the way. I'm just saying. It's still crazy to me. But he said Tracy Walker, same thing. Same thing with Will Harris. You're seeing these guys take steps. We saw potential, but, you know, they look different now. You're seeing the improvement. I think that's one thing, man. You're seeing improvement from these secondary players and even players that you didn't even expect to have a role maybe this season because of some of the injuries, like Jerry Jacobs, like maybe even A.J. Parker. They're surprising us. And then you cap it off with DeAndre Swift, who is limited as well today. Groin injury. It's been like this for weeks now, but he has played 4 weeks now. And, of course, we have Jermar Jefferson, who has not taken any offensive snaps yet, but we have him. We do have him. And he played a little bit of special teams. It was his first time active last week, I think this season. So that was pretty cool. A couple of good notes, though, from this. Jonah Jackson is now off this list. He was on here last week. Amani Oruwariye is off this list. He was on here last week. Jamal Williams is off this list. Now, his was more of an illness, but he is off this list. So that's good. So those 3 guys are off this list. Couple quick updates, couple notes from some of the pressers that we have today from the Lions side. Then I'll give you some updates on the Rams. And, you know, when I get the injury report, I'll throw that part in there. We'll probably, you know, kind of just fly through it a little bit. But let's talk about this. Couple updates with the Lions. First off, he was asked about the whole Stafford trade. I mean, this was a while ago, so we're really going back to this. But when this, you know, it's this week, so these questions are going to come up. And he said, you know, he kind of knew where Stafford's mind was at. So there was, you know, he wanted out and they handled it well. And that was pretty much it. Okay. He didn't really give us a long-winded explanation. He didn't need to. I mean, this has been a while since this has been the case, but of course it was going to be asked about.
To me, it was, I think it was very evident that he was, you know, it was time. And I think you just know when you're hearing all that, and you know where the mindset is. And so it's, and that's okay. And that was where it was going to go, and there was no need of trying to push it somewhere it wasn't going to be, you know. And so, you know, both parties, we made the move that we did. He handled it like a pro, and he's doing a great job out there right now. And unfortunately, we got to face him now.
He did talk a little bit about how his team is built, and we've heard this, and how they can have success and what they need to be able to do to have that success. We know we need to be able to run the ball. We can't throw the ball 40 plus times. That's just not our game. And unfortunately, that's been the case last couple of weeks. I mean, we've seen that Goff threw it 42 times last week. He said, we're not built like that. He understands that it is a passing league, and they'll adjust in the next offseason and how things go and how, you know, they want to continue to build this team. But he's like, you got to play with what you have. And our strength right now, you know, how we're built as a team, we need to be able to keep the run game alive. We need to be able to play off the run. You know, we got to be able to keep that going throughout the game by staying in a closer game. That means scoring earlier, you know, not falling behind, not making the mistakes to keep the run game alive. But we also need to run the ball better than we did last week, because even when we did run the ball last week, it didn't even go that well. But he did say that, you know, we're a team that has to keep that balance.
I think there's very few teams that are equipped to do that, but I know we're not, for sure. So if we don't keep ourselves in this game, it makes it hard for us. It makes it hard.
The play action element to it. We need to be able to keep that run game alive throughout the game to play that way. We're not built to pass the ball 40 plus times. To the Goff side, he was asked about the tempo. We've talked about this a little bit, and really, what does that mean? What do they mean when they can see more tempo? And, you know, he clarified that, yeah, we're probably going to see that this week, because this was brought up at the beginning of the week that this is a possibility. Actually, this may have been brought up last week. This is a possibility. Find some of that rhythm that we haven't been able to find. And I wouldn't say, you know, that's going to be the whole game that the Lions would play like that, but I think we could see the Lions maybe come out and start that way, or just play like that through different sequences of the game to try to find some rhythm if it's lacking. The way they are playing right now, some of their flags and stuff are really hurting them. Updates from the Rams side. Sean McVay said the team is pretty darn healthy on the injury front, so we started off with that. So I don't expect it to be a very bad injury report when we take a look at it. He did say Sony Michel will be held out of practice. He got from New England, but he did say don't expect that to change his status for the game on Sunday. So expect Sony Michel to still play, it sounds like, but he will not practice today. Andrew Whitworth, their starting left tackle, will be held out of practice as well with a rest day. And outside linebacker, he called it T-Lou. I'm assuming he's talking about Terrell Lewis. I don't follow him like that to know their nicknames. But Terrell Lewis, Alabama outside linebacker, young player, he also is on a rest day. He's had a lot of, you know, injuries that he's had to deal with in the past. So that one does make sense with them, because they have made some roster moves as well. They brought 2 new players into their practice squad. Jared Pinkney, the tight end who was with us, as they promoted 2 players from the practice squad to their active roster. So we'll talk about those in a second. But Jared Pinkney is now on their practice squad, a player that's still a very young player. He had a lot more hype coming out of the draft, but he hasn't really been able to stick with a team. So maybe he'll be able to stick with the LA Rams. Grant Haley, who back in 2018 was kind of a nickel/slot cornerback. He was a UDFA going back 2018. Most recently was with the New Orleans Saints. Added a couple new pieces to their practice squad and to their active roster. They have officially signed cornerback DoseOfDion. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Deontay Dion. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. It made a pretty strong impression on Sean McVay to get signed to the active roster from the practice squad, as in their last week's game, he played really well. David Long was struggling, so they had him play, and he played in a lot of snaps. He was targeted 12 times, which is a lot of targets. Probably because he was like the new guy, so you target the new guy. But 12 is a lot. He only gave up 37 yards and a 56.6 pass rating, which, yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. But I wouldn't say this Rams defense has been like a shutdown defense up until this Giants game. They had long possessions against them. They had a lot of plays against them per drive. 31st going into week 6, or this last week against the Giants, this week 6, in plays per drive. But they were bend don't break due to field goals. This past week, we saw Deontay get a bigger role. Like I said, Darius Williams now on IR. You know, he was struggling a little bit. David Long was struggling a little bit. Had some struggles. So Rochelle's role's gone up. So they gave Deontay a chance, and he played really well. Like literally, this dude's 158 pounds. 158 pounds.
What's up, AD? Straight down there?
The Howell, who is more of a bruiser, 6'1", 215. He's kind of a bulky power back to their backfield. Of course, like I said, Michel's going to be held out of action today. He did note that Tutu Atwell is the guy that's competing to be their returner, so we could see that this week. All right, so we may see some of the rookie returning against it. He's explosive, so you got to watch for that guy. I'm just saying. Talking about Michael Brockers, that's another player. There's multiple players that have connections here. Michael Brockers is, of course, another one. And he said, look, we miss Michael Brockers' presence. Guys have done well, like Ashawn, you know, some of the guys have done well stepping into that role, but Brockers is the presence they miss. And I'm going to be honest, man. I mean, I love the addition, but this dude has been a very big presence for us. Unfortunately, it gets kind of overlooked because we've struggled. The D-line has been good, and Brockers has been steady all year long. So credit to Michael Brockers. He's been helpful, and I think he's going to be helpful even outside of this year to the next couple of years because he's still under contract for a few more. But Michael Brockers has been really, really nice for him. They said they wanted to keep him around. For whatever reason, it didn't happen. But, you know, he is a guy that they do miss. They miss that presence, especially as a run defender, work ethic, kind of a leader on that D-line. By the way, we need our O-line leader back, and that's Taylor Decker. He talks about Stafford because, you know, those questions are going to be thrown up a lot now that this week is here. And he said, you know, Stafford is better than I thought, and I thought he'd be really good. He's on pace right now for 45 touchdowns and 5,200 yards, which is kind of nuts. I know there's an extra game, so that does, you know, kind of sway things, but that's nuts. Either way, this is going to be an exciting game. Those are kind of some of the injury updates I do have right now. I don't expect it to be a crazy injury report. It doesn't sound like there's anything outstanding that we should expect to see, but those are some of the notes, and when we get it, I'll throw that clip in there. We're on to the Rams side of the injury report. I do now have it in officially, and I gotta say, I'll take the L for this one. I didn't realize when Sean McVay said they're pretty healthy on the injury front, and when he brought up the 3 players that wouldn't practice today, that was it. I probably should have known, looking at their past injury reports, how small it was. Like last week, they had 4 or 5 players on there. I think this is it. We'll know tomorrow officially, but it's 8 o'clock, and I was like, I don't want to wait any longer to get this out. Those are the only 3 players that I saw listed on their injury report. So, yeah. They're doing pretty well, but we do have some updates with their injury reserve. We know Cam Akers, the running back, came into the season. He's on the NFI list right now, who is their top back. But Darrell Henderson is back. Okay, Darrell Henderson. Okay, Darrell Henderson is back. He had 21 carries last week for 78 yards. He's the 1. Michelle's the 2. So they do have their running backs intact right now, but they don't have Cam Akers. Jake Funk, he has been placed on injury reserve, so that's why they went out and signed that other running back. The guy only had 1 carry for the Rams for 6 yards. He's another guy that's only had 1 reception so far this season. Above that, they have guys like Bryson, and they also have, of course, Tyler Higbee. Of course, at the bottom, Darius Williams, the cornerback, who had a pretty darn good season last year. He struggled a little bit this season. He's also on injury reserve. In their place, they have some young guys stepping up. We talked about the new corner that stepped up last week that has now been signed to the active roster. Plus, Robert Rochelle has been getting some snaps. He had an interception last week. So they have young cornerbacks in the back end. The thing is, they just have a really good front, and they got playmakers, right? They have playmakers, but they lost some pieces at the safety unit. Their cornerback's a little bit depleted, and just before even going really into the film, I would say there could be opportunities possibly with some of the young pieces that they have back there. You know, Rochelle is a rookie. Aside from Ramsey, there are some newer pieces, but that front 7 just makes it so darn tough. But yeah, all I see on the injury report are those 3 guys, so they are pretty healthy. I will say that they're doing pretty well for their side of things, considering that the 2 of those guys on there are just resting, and the other one is supposed to play on Sunday. So I think they're going to be all right, but we'll see. Maybe we'll get more updates by tomorrow. There's really not much to talk about here with this for the Rams, but yeah, I did want to throw this in there. I won't wait next time. I guess when McVay brings it up, that's all it is. So we'll see. If this is wrong, I'll update it tomorrow. If there's more players on this list, we'll just have to kind of wait and see it out, but this will probably be coming out later this week just because of the fact that they have a different time zone. Either way, appreciate you guys for sticking around, for checking out the video. I know it came out later than usual, but I do appreciate it. And we learn from these late starts, okay? Everybody have a good night. Watch some basketball. I know the Pistons are playing. Kate Cunningham's not making his debut tonight. I was kind of hoping he would, but I guess he's not. I don't follow it close enough to know that he wasn't, so that's my bad. But anyways, thank you, Brian, for watching. I'll see y'all tomorrow, and I'm out.